Hello, we are Flavia Castillo, Coral Moreno, Alejandra Castaños, and Janine Morales, and today in this video we will explain a little about Peru's history and how power is divided in this country.
Peru's history dates back some 20,000 years before Christ, approximately, when the territory began to be populated with groups of men and women, hunters and gatherers. In the territory of South America, true civilizations that we call pre-Incas were developing. The most important were, on the coast, Chimu, Nazca, Paracas; in the highlands, Chavin and Tiahuanaco. For Dr. Julio Cetello, the Chavin culture was the oldest in Peru. Its main center is in Chavin de Huántar, in the Ancash region. From then on, the peoples of South America developed various cultural facets: architecture, economy, and religion. The Inca Empire was the strongest in the region, along with the Mayan and Aztec peoples. Its antiquity dates back to 1280 approximately. The main center was the city of Cusco, from where more than 4,000 kilometers of roads and hundreds of conquered towns were governed. The Spanish Conquest. The conquest was a traumatic and difficult period for both indigenous natives and new Europeans. It meant a radical change in the composition of society and in the world view of the inhabitants of Peru. This is a time of the great evangelization and indoctrination campaigns in order to make Peru a true Spanish colony. The rebellion attempts were immediate. The largest one was led by the cacique Tupac Amaru II, who brought together people of all races and social classes against the Spanish crown. But finally, he was defeated. The Republic. This stage was born in 1821, with the oath of independence in the city of Lima by the Argentine José San Martín, who, together with the Venezuelan Simón Bolívar, had led military campaigns made up of an army from different regions of the viceroyalty. However, two more battles, Ayacucho and Junín, were necessary in 1824 to finally seal independence. Once Spain's freedom was achieved, the most serious problem for the young republics was political organization and the consensus of the emerging social groups. How to make Peru develop independently? Which group should lead this development? What would be the most suitable to govern Peru? These have been the big questions since the appearance of the Republic. Peru is a democratic, social, independent, and sovereign republic. Its government is unitary, representative, and decentralized, and it's organized according to the principle of the separation of powers. Peru's legal tradition. Peru is a civil law country. It is a democratic and decentralized republic with a multi-party system, in which the president is the head of the state and government, representing the country's ongoing interests and directing governmental policy. President of Peru. The current Peruvian president is Martín Alberto Vizcarra Cornejo. The president's election is made by citizens and they vote every 5 years. Congress. Citizens vote every 5 years for the 130 members or congressmen. Every Peruvian of legal age that is registered in the RENIEC, National Vital Statistics and Civil Registry Office, has to vote for the president, the parliament, and the regional and municipal elections. Mayors, provincial and municipal aldermen, governors, deputy governors, and regional councilors are elected every 4 years.
In Peru, power is not focused in just one single institution. Following the principle of separation of powers, a concept developed in the 18th century by the philosopher known as Montesquieu, we have the executive, legislative, and judicial power. To carry out the different tasks necessary to uphold the state, they are joined by 10 other bodies, such as the Constitutional Court, which, contrary to what is thought, is not part of the judicial power. These bodies are called autonomous constitutional bodies, and they function completely independently from the powers mentioned before. In addition, we also have regional and local governments, which have autonomy to resolve matters within their competence. But this division mentioned is very important because although the president is considered the head of a state, the different powers try to achieve a balance by balancing the responsibilities and obligations of each one. Without a monopoly of power, we can avoid authoritarian situations that do not respect the rights that our Constitution defends. But let's talk a little about each of these institutions. In essence, the executive branch, headed by the president, plans and executes development politics at national level. To help with this, it has the office of the President of the Council of Ministers and 18 other ministries, which focus on specific issues such as, for example, education or health. As a counterweight to the legislative, it is also responsible for regulating the laws issued. And also, it can monitor them if it does not agree with what is approved. On the other hand, the legislative branch, as its name indicates, has as main purpose to debate and pass laws. However, it also exercises political control over the authorities. For example, it has to approve the Council of Ministers proposed by the executive. Likewise, they can open investigations to authorities, including judges, and sanction them if they consider that there has been an infraction. Finally, the judicial branch is in charge of administering justice, and it is who we turn to when we seek it. In other words, it ensures that everyone, citizens and state authorities, comply with current laws. So now, let's learn more about each of these branches. The executive branch, as its name tells us, is in charge of executing. In other words, it is in charge of ensuring that the general policy of the government is carried out at national level. First, through regulations such as legislative decrees, emergency decrees, supreme decrees, or supreme resolutions. Supreme decrees regulate laws passed by the Congress, or regulate the activity of a specific sector. Supreme resolutions are specific decisions of each sector or ministry. Through legislative decrees, laws can be created on a specific matter that Congress allows. In emergency decrees, we find temporary measures in economic and financial matters as an emergency. For any of the decisions mentioned before, we need the President of the Republic. The President of the Republic that we elect every 5 years is considered head of a state, represents the country, head of government, directs government policy, and commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Without his signature, none of the aforementioned decrees or resolutions would be valid. However, the president on his own cannot do what he pleases. These decisions include his ministers. The ministers, positions considered of confidence by the President of the Republic, are the right hand of the President in order to be able to carry out the policy established by the government. Each minister is in charge of a ministry. Apart from Walter Matos, chief of the Council of Ministers, there are 18 ministries: agriculture, defense, economy and finance, education, health, transport and communications, among others. Depending on the sector, these ministries also make use of other entities in order to fulfill their objectives. For example, the SUNEDU within the education sector, or the Peruvian National Police in the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Now, as we have learned, the President of the Republic, together with the Chief of the Council of Ministers, coordinate with the different sectors or the ministers to be able to plan and supervise the government policies that have been established.
To continue with this presentation, now let's talk about another branch, which is the legislature. The parliamentary institution has one first and historical responsibility: the creation of the law. The political constitution of Peru sets forth several avenues to the formulation and enactment of legislation. Another important congressional function is the parliamentary oversight of the acts of the executive branch and the public administration in general. This is executed through information requests or by calling the ministers to appear before the plenary of Congress and the committees, and by exerting control over the executive decrees issued by the President of the Republic. The Congress represents the plural opinion of the nation, representative of all races, creeds, ideologies, professions, and crafts, are elected by democratic votes on the basis of the people decisions. How is it divided? The legislature is unicameral. The parliament, called Congress, consists of 130 seats, with its members elected by popular vote to serve 5-year terms. Congress ratifies treaties, authorizes government loans, and approves the government budget. The President has the power to veto acts of the legislature, and in turn a supermajority, which is generally two-thirds majority of the legislatures, may act to override the veto. The President has the power to block legislation with which the executive branch does not agree. The maximum authority in this branch of government is the President of the Congress or the Congress Chairman. The current Congress Chairman is Manuel Merino de Lama, and he belongs to the Fuerza Popular Party. He is in foreign line of presidential succession in both the President and both Vice Presidents are incapable of assuming the role. The President of the Congress can only serve as interim President, as he is required to call new elections if all 3 executive officers are not incapable of serving. This has happened once since adoption of the current constitution, when Valentin Paniagua became the interim president after the fall of the Alberto Fujimori regime in 2000. The President of the Congress is elected for a 1-year term by the rest of the Congress. Re-election is possible but uncommon. The President of the Congress is almost always from the majority party. Its most important responsibility is to control and guide debate in Congress. He also signs, communicates, and publishes bills and other decisions made by Congress. He also may delegate any of these responsibilities to one of the vice presidents of the Congress. The Congress chairman serves along 3 vice presidents, who are collectively known as Mesa Directiva del Congreso, known as the Bureau in English.
The three vice presidents are not always from the same party as the presidents. The Bureau approves all administrative functions as well as all of Congress' internal financial policies and hiring needs. Any member of the Bureau may be censored by any member of the Congress. The current vice presidents are Luis Valdés, who belongs to Alianza para el Congreso, as the first vice president, Guillermo Aliaga from Somos Peru Party, who is the second vice president, and María Teresa Cabrera, who belongs to Podemos Peru Party, as the third vice president. How are they elected? The legislative power is vested in the unicameral Congress of the Republic, whose members are popularly elected to 5-year terms. Members of the Congress are directly elected in multi-seat constituencies by proportional representative vote. To enter the Congress, parties must either cross the 5% electoral threshold at the national level or win at least 7 seats in the constitution. Peru has a multi-party system, and it is difficult for a single political party to secure an absolute majority in the Congress. Thus, political groups often work with each other to form coalition alliances consisting of smaller parties. The main parliamentary forces to secure about 10 seats in the Congress of Peru are Peruanos por el Cambio, which is based on center-right economic liberalism, liberal conservatism. Then we have Fuerza Popular, which is based on right-wing Fujimorism, conservatism, and right-wing populism. Frente Amplio, which is left-wing to far-left, democratic socialism, feminism, and anti-capitalism. Nuevo Peru, which is left-wing socialism, progressivism, and feminism. Alianza para el Progreso, which is center-right, conservative liberalism, progressivism, and populism. Acción Popular, which is centered to center-right, reformism, nationalism, paternalistic conservatism. And finally, Peru Posible, which is based on center-left and liberal democracy.
The judiciary is the branch of power which is autonomous and independent in political, administrative, economic, and disciplinary matters. Its role is to administer justice through the Peruvian territory and also the extension of jurisdiction and customary law specified in Section 149 of the Political Constitution. It guarantees the rights of citizens and resolves legal processes between them. Judges exercise their function independently, subject to the Constitution and their organic law. The judiciary is divided in two, in a low level and a high level. In the low level, there are the courts of peace, which are the simplest way to exercise justice. They are more focused on conciliation, and the person in charge is not a judge. The second one are the courts of peace with attorney at law. They were created for certain rural or urban areas and correspond to one or more districts, and they decide on sentences given in the peace courts. Now we are in the high level. It starts with the specialized and mixed courts. They depend on the Supreme Court and they function in a judicial district. They specialize in law issues such as civil, criminal, labor, tax and custom offenses, and family law. It also deals with appeals of judgments from the courts of peace with attorney at law. The next one is the Superior Court. It corresponds to 34 judicial districts and the National Criminal Chamber. It hears appeals of judgments from the specialized and mixed courts. And the last one is the Supreme Court, which is the maximum jurisdictional level of judiciary in Peru. It is the maximum authority. It hears cases from the different superior courts of justice in the country, and it hears civil, criminal, and constitutional matters. The maximum authority of the judiciary of Peru is the current president of the Supreme Court, who is José Luis Licaros Cornejo. So, do you remember that the power of a state was divided in four? This is the last one, the autonomous constitutional bodies. They were created to safeguard the rule of law and to have greater efficiency in the execution of some functions. Something important to point out is that these bodies do not depend on any of the powers of the state, so we have the following bodies: el Tribunal Constitucional, which is the constitutional court; el Ministerio Público, which is the office of the Attorney General; la Defensoría del Pueblo, which is the office of the Ombudsman; el Jurado Nacional de Elecciones, which is the National Electoral Board; la Oficina Nacional de Procesos Electorales, which is the National Elections Office; el Registro Nacional de Identificación y Estado Civil, the National Vital Statistics and Civil Registry Office; el Consejo Nacional de la Magistratura, which is now the Junta Nacional de Justicia, the National Board of Justice; el Banco Central de Reserva del Perú, the Central Reserve Bank of Peru; la Contraloría General de la República, the Office of the Comptroller General of the Republic; la Superintendencia de Bancas, Seguros y Administradoras Privadas de Fondos de Pensiones, the Superintendency of Banking and Insurance, and of Private Pension Fund Management Companies. So these are all of these bodies, and that's it. Thank you.